Hi, I'm Luke Gilfillan. Welcome to Lounge with Luke Gilfillan. Hello and welcome to Lounge with Luke Gilfillan. Today we have a couple things to go over. First off, the Julian Middle School principal is moving on to a different role in the educational system. A office supply store in Oak Park, I believe, called Puritz is closing after 125 years, so that's some news. And then Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York is now allowing gatherings of up to 10 people. And then we have another story about Hong Kong in the New York Times. So we'll just start off right now with the Julian principal. This is according to Bob Skolnick at the Wednesday Journal. Percy Julian Middle School in Oak Park will have a new principal next year after Principal Todd Fitzgerald announced he was resigning to become superintendent of Comerick School District 94, a one-school K-8 district in North Riverside that serves part of that village and part of Broadview. Fitzgerald, who has been the principal for Julian for the past 8 years, will start his new job on July 1st and finish out the school year at Julian. He informed Julian parents of his impending departure in an email to families on May 19th, just hours before the Comerick School Board voted to hire him. He said, "Although I will miss the relationships that I have established in the Julian community, my family and I are excited about the opportunities and challenges the new position will bring," Fitzgerald wrote. "I am grateful to have served as the principal of Julian Middle School for the past 8 years and have thoroughly enjoyed working with my colleagues, families, and community stakeholders to support the academic and emotional needs of our students. All of my experiences in Oak Park have helped me grow personally and professionally and have prepared me to take this step in my career as an educational leader." Fitzgerald introduced a middle school international, I cannot pronounce that program, it's baccalaureate program at Julian and generally was held in high regard. "As a parent, I am sad that he is leaving," said Angela Dolezai, mother of a Julian sixth grader and the former principal of Longfellow School in Oak Park. "He's spent 8 years making Julian what it is, and I feel he's done a great job." Dolezal said that her daughter was sad about losing her principal. We're both very disappointed, bummed that he's leaving," Dolezal said. "He isn't afraid to try new things. He has, over the course of the years, really tried to listen to the students and tried in numerous ways to meet student needs. Knowing that he's leaving as my daughter is starting her second year is a hard thing for us to grasp because he's like a calling force for a number of parents and students alike." Oak Park District 97 Superintendent Carol Kelly said in a press release that she is sad that Fitzgerald is leaving, but the district is planning on how to replace him. "Todd Fitzgerald has been an incredible principal for District 97 for the past 8 years. I want to thank him for his hard work, professionalism, and significant contributions to the growth and success of Julian Middle School," Kelly said in the press release. "Although we are sad to see him go, I am proud that one of our district leaders has the opportunity to take on a superintendency." Kelly said the school district will immediately begin working on a plan to replace Fitzgerald, including a discussion on it. They're going to keep you updated on the status of their efforts. So after 8 years that Julian principal is leaving, that comes at the same time as the By Elementary School principal is leaving, and earlier the Lincoln Elementary School teacher is leaving, though the middle school is much larger than both of those. Now we're going to move on to Pierce calls it quits. In the Wednesday Journal again, by Stacy Sheridan, our favorite reporter over here at the Lounge with Luke Gilfillan. After 125 years selling office supplies, the beloved family-run Pierce Bros. 401 South Boulevard is closing up shop at the end of June. "It was a really difficult decision. I had been thinking about it for the last decade just because of the climate for small independent supply realtors. It just wasn't really viable anymore as a business," said co-manager Deborah Pierce. "We kept it going just purely out of love and sentiment. A true family business, Pierce's grandfather, Robert Pierce, founded Pierce Bros. In 1895 with his two brothers, Henry and Arthur. The original location was on the corner of Laramie Avenue and Lake Street. Growing up, Pierce and her sister played together there. They also helped keep the shop tidy, earning a nickel for every cabinet they cleaned out. It was sort of a mysterious place with all this cool stuff," she said. After 75 years at the first location, Pierce Bros. Moved to the corner of South Boulevard and Ridgeland Avenue in Oak Park. Her father, Alvin Pearce, ran the shop for many years. Her mother turned the shop over to Pearce and her sister in 2005. Pearce has managed the helm ever since alongside her brother-in-law and co-manager John Roberts, who started working at the family business in the 1980s. While Pearce Bros sells standard supplies, it's far more than just a peddler of pens and file folders. It's an Oak Park institution. The store also doubles as something of a quirky walk-in time capsule filled with antique manual typewriters and vintage pens. Pearce Bros even sells bits of history, including typewriter ribbons and China markers. I always find it strange that they only release the stories about these shops when they're going out of business, and part of that is because there's not really a headline. You're just doing an exploration of a local business, but I think more of that might be necessary. And Pearce Bros is likely closing because, well, they've been thinking about it for a while, but the lockdowns and COVID probably finalized that decision. I think it would have been good while there was less news to go around to do a exploration of Pearce Bros. It's been there 125 years. I'm wondering if there are other businesses, particularly like family businesses like Pearce Bros. In Oak Park that I just am not aware of that have been around for maybe longer than that or as long, and I'd like to know that they exist. This description reminds me of that Forest Park Antique store on Madison Street. That's a really cool store. If you go there, it's really cool. I would recommend it. But I think that would be a good story to do, to just do a local business like the antique store, see who runs it, how long it's been in operation, because a lot of people, they might shop at those stores very often and they have no idea what that's about, and it might be a good idea or a good article to go over that. As it currently exists, Pearce Bros is an honest homage to yesteryears, completely devoid of the chessiness that permeates nostalgia shops, and that makes it truly special. With the rise of big box change, business steadily declined for Pearce Bros. Now most of the store's profits come from walk-in customers. It was a cool, funky place, but in terms of actual business that was supposed to support us, that was kind of waning, Pearce said. I've known that was happening for a long time. It was inevitable, and then the pandemic, that made it very clear. Yeah, so COVID finalized their decision. The memory of Pearce Bros. Will be preserved through the Oak Park River Forest Museum. Executive Director Frank Lipo has already collected some Pearce signage in one of the store's counters. He's taking a few key things, which I'm very happy about, though I think we're going to have a bit of a presence. The museum will also house many of the typewriters displayed in Pearce Bros., as well as an antique pen case originally from the Oak Park Marshall Fields. Pearce says, saying goodbye to the store felt bittersweet. Making the decision was really, really difficult, she said. However, once decided, Pearce said it felt like a weight just lifted off of her. Part of me is sad, she said, and this is going to sound weird, but I want to kind of enjoy it, giving out pieces, expanding the store on a different level. People are sad, but for the most part, people are very understanding of why it's happening. Though throughout its many years of business, Pearce Bros. Served many of Oak Park's most beloved residents, including Barbara Markley. I apologize if I'm saying that wrong. Wednesday Journal founding member and former colonist and housing integration pioneer Bobby Raymond. We did a legendary locals on that, so she's coming back up. Speaking of which, I don't have the legendary locals ready, so I'm going to have to walk off the camera at some point. We're going to move on now. Moving on, we're going to go to the story in the New York Times about Governor Andrew Cuomo. This was announced 21 minutes ago, allowing any gatherings of up to 10 people as long as it's for any lawful reason. So you're not allowed to, unfortunately, go and get together with your baseball team and shoot heroin behind the school library, which really sucks. That's a fundamental right that has been stripped of us for centuries now. Centuries. Governor Cuomo said the Mid-Hudson River region of New York would open on Tuesday and that Long Island could open by Wednesday. So Governor Andrew Cuomo is moving towards reopening, which is, he's been hinting at it for a long time now. no one's really covered the fact that he's said, like, guys, we got to reopen at some point. But he's been saying that for the past couple of weeks, and the politicization of reopening is not something that Andrew Cuomo has really prescribed to. If anyone should be on lockdown, it is New York. Though they're starting to get a tiny bit of herd immunity. That's not the proper term. They're getting a lot more antibodies in the community. I think New York is at like 25%. That's in line with Stockholm. That's in line with what they're at because of their denser population and how fast it spread in early March before the lockdown started. In an unexpected executive order. I'm so used to journalists saying unprecedented in every single story that they've ever done that it's just becoming habit of me to write unprecedented. I apologize if my hair is a little messy. I'm starting to notice that. New York slightly loosened the coronavirus restrictions, saying that gatherings of up to 10 people would be allowed for any lawful purpose or reason. It is a tragedy that unlawful purposes or reasons are not allowed in this stay-at-home order. Though I guess if you were going to like gather for an unlawful purpose, if you were going to gather to trade firearms in a shipping dock, you wouldn't go like, oh, guys, Governor Cuomo says we can't do it because we might be transferring COVID. I don't think that's something that would go... Or no, it would be an Italian accent because of New York. Though I'm not going to attempt an Italian accent because I'd butcher it. It would be like... No, I said I wouldn't do it. I would never do it, though. I sort of want to do that Bernie Sanders Brooklyn accent. You know... Oh, no, I can't do it. Okay? We were going for... That was like an Obama-Bernie cross, and I didn't want to try it. So, I'm going to work on my impressions. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. It's just something I'm never going to get to. My apologies. I'm not even looking at the camera. I'm looking at the article. Why am I doing this? I need to eye focus. You got to notice the swallow there. Cuomo issued the order after the New York Civil Liberties Union filed a suit that objected to Mr. Cuomo's order on Thursday that allowed groups of 10 people or less to gather for religious services or for Memorial Day weekend celebrations. Mr. Cuomo's order on Friday night modified the previous order. So he put a previous order out saying that you could gather for religious services or for Memorial Day celebrations, and then the New York Civil Liberties Union was having none of that because, not everyone is a fan of Memorial Day celebrations or religious services. Though I guess you could go and shoot heroin in the back of a school library and say, guys, it's a religious ceremony. Would they be able to stop you? I don't know. You'll have to try it. I recommend anyone in the New York area, just go to your nearest local I could probably get in trouble for saying this, come to think of it. Okay. The revision was swiftly condemned by Councilman Mark D. Levine, who represents Upper Manhattan and chairman of the City Council Health Committee. He stressed that the order had not been made by health professionals. Gotta let the professionals dictate our way of life, okay? It's not like everyone is capable of making their own risk-adjusted decision. We gotta go with the Wilsonian philosophy that the experts must govern our lives. This shocking order, forced by a lawsuit, changes nothing about the risk associated with the group gatherings, especially those held indoors, he said in tweets posted at 8:15 a.m. That is shocking that he would post in a tweet at 8:15 p.m. or 8:45 p.m. I don't know why I read that at 8:15. No one should interpret this as advice to change their behavior. I think that people should interpret it as you're allowed to make your own risk calculations in your own life if you're under the age of 25 and you're more likely to get killed walking across Lake Street than from COVID. By the way, I probably should have covered that. The CDC finally released more statistics in terms of how the mortality rates of various groups of vulnerability. And I've seen a lot of parents that are so concerned about their toddlers getting coronavirus for some reason. They're putting N95 masks on their 2-year-old. Don't do that. It's not worth the hassle. If you really want to be protective, go ahead. It's your own child, but there's no point in it. The CDC released new data in or it wasn't new data. They released a put out new guidelines in terms of that, and there's some new data that was along with that. Basically, general information, if your toddlers under the age of 1 are the flu comparison I'm going to use because that's what I remember, and it puts it in perspective. I guess that's better. That's a better way of looking at it. If you're a toddler under the age of 1, you're 17 times more likely to die from the flu. The flu tends to take a greater toll on toddlers usually, so the flu is pretty dangerous for toddlers, but 17 times more likely to die from the flu than coronavirus. If you're under the age of 25, and you're much less likely to die from coronavirus the younger you are, but I'll just say 25 because we don't want to spend 10 minutes going through all the age groups. 25, you're 3 times more likely to die from coronavirus. 25 or under, that's obviously just counting any autoimmune diseases. If you have an autoimmune disease, then you're about where the elderly would be, probably worse at that point. And then from there, the statistics that you've seen from coronavirus compared to flu is about the same for the older age groups. If you're under the age of 65, it's about 1-to-1, though it's much more transmission. You've got a 1 RNA. So for every person that's getting it, they're going to transmit it to, on average, about 3 people. So you're much, much more likely to get coronavirus than the flu, and there's no vaccine for coronavirus, unlike the flu, though that we're working on that. I probably should have covered that, too. Moderna had a thing. I think I covered that in another podcast. But Moderna and a German vaccine maker, they're doing really well in terms of accelerating that. The German vaccine maker expects 1 year. Moderna expects 6 months, so I don't think the Moderna vaccine is going to be nearly as effective as the one that the Germans are making, just because the Moderna vaccine, it's through the nose rather than actual injection. It doesn't use dead vaccine cells or dead virus cells, which is probably less dangerous. And if you're under the age of 25, you probably just want to take that Moderna vaccine. You don't want to take the other thing. There's virtually no risk of taking it, but there's very little risk in coronavirus if you're under the age of 25. So you might just want to take the Moderna vaccine and skip the second one if you're under the age of 25. If you're over 80, you want to take the Moderna vaccine when it comes out, wait 6 months for the full vaccine, and then take that just for extra protection if you haven't gotten the virus already. Though we don't know if there's long-term immunity, which is also very frustrating. What you're likely to see is that coronavirus never goes away. It becomes like a flu, and it would probably be better if there is long-term immunity and you're 25. You probably want to get it now so that you don't get it when you're 85 and you're 10,000 times more likely to die from it. We'll go back to the article. I think I went on a tangent there, but yeah, there you go. Shocking order forced by a lawsuit changes nothing about the risks associated with group gatherings, especially those held indoors. No one should... We're glad to see the governor reverse course. Christopher Dunn, the Civil Liberties Group's legal director, sent in a statement late Friday. At his daily briefing on Saturday, Mr. Cuomo said that he had not been aware of the Civil Liberties Union's lawsuit. He told residents to continue to practice social distancing and other safety measures at any get-together. You can have a safe gathering of 10 people, he said. Under the new orders, groups of up to 10 people may gather in any region of the state, even those that have not been cleared to enter the first state of reopening. I just see another headline. New York had fewer than 100 new virus deaths for the first time since late March. And that is, in a state of, what do they have, like 27 million people? That is really, really low. And if you put it in that perspective, though we have been on the lockdowns, there's no excuse for putting 20% of the population under an unemployment for 100 deaths. That's just a risk calculation that we make all the time in public policy. The obvious example is we we're not actively killing anyone, just as we aren't actively killing anyone by opening up. We're not murdering anyone, though. I guess you could say, it's basically murder. It's not. There's a difference between intentionally killing someone and allowing people to make risk-adjusted decisions, because if you believe that every public policy decision had to be made with only how many deaths it's going to cause in mind, then presumably we would all be in those little hamster bubbles that I've seen people online roll down hills in, and we would never leave the house. But that's just not how anyone wants to live, and anyone that would suggest that would be thought of as crazy, though I guess not anymore. The number of statewide casualties of the coronavirus dipped below 100 for the first time since late March. Oh, we're over 11 minutes. Okay. The number of statewide casualties of the coronavirus below 100 for the first time dipped below 100 for the first time since late March. Governor Andrew M. Cuomo announced Saturday. The governor reported 84 new deaths of the virus, the lowest daily toll yet since March 24th. Well, Cuomo called the number of new casualties on Saturday a tragedy, no doubt. He said he could not ignore that the downward trend was a positive sign as New York slowly returns to normalcy. The fact that it is down as low as it is, it's really overall good news, Mr. Cuomo said. In my head, I was always looking to get under 100. For me, it's just a sign that we were making real progress. It's not going to stay under 100. I think it's very unlikely that we get to under 100 permanently until we get to a vaccine, unless we continue to lock people inside their homes, or we get some sort of I'm missing the word. I want to say pharmaceutical, though I don't think that's the right word. Therapeutical. We get some sort of medicine that can deal with coronavirus, though I wanted to use the scientific term, which is unfortunate that slipped my mind. We're going to skip this because basically the person rambles because they got the clicks and now they just want to continue talking, which is typical of most journalists. I don't blame them, though. The New York Times, they get enough subscriptions that's unnecessary. Okay, on probably the biggest news of the day, probably in long term, it's going to be bigger than the day-to-day coronavirus counts. This is from Hannah Beach at the New York Times. I am just Hong Kong, a city's fate in China's hands. The hybrid of East and West may have reached the limits of its middle ground. So there was national security legislation that was passed by the Hong Kong Parliament, I believe, or is it committee? I think it might be both. You know what? We're gonna start with the article, and then I'll talk about the article because I'm not good at explaining things. That's why I use the articles to explain it, because otherwise I'd just talk for 30 minutes about the news of the day. But I don't do that because I'm not talented enough to do that. And I don't think anyone is talented enough to do that, though. I hope someday I will be. Hong Kong was... I have a lot of... You know what? I'll stop talking. Hong Kong was born at the crossroads... Hong Kong was born at the crossroad of empires, a hybrid of British and Chinese parentage, and may fade there, too. This barren rock, as the envoy of Queen Victoria once called it, transformed into one of the most truly global cities, a place where international finances thrived as people created a cultural identity of their own. Even the territory's current political system is bound by a negotiated settlement called One Country, Two Systems that, despite all odds and an inelegant monkier, seem to work. But this week, Hong Kong discovered the limits to the middle ground that it is carved to nourish one of the most prosperous and dynamic cities on earth. Between East and West, between rice and bread, between liberal and authoritarian order. The territory's fate is once again being decided in haraway halls of power as Beijing moves forward with plans to strip some of the autonomy the territory was supposed to enjoy for 50 years after Britain returned it to China in 1997. The death knell for Hong Kong has been sounded many times since that handover, but the proposed national security legislation could have crushing implications for a place so dedicated to the international language of commerce that the local form of English is stripped of embellishment. Can, no can. But often these days, the answer is no can. The new national security laws outlined at the annual session of China's legislature on Friday would likely curtail some of the civil liberties that differentiate Hong Kong for the rest of the country, and they take aim at a mass protest movement that showed the world last year the extent to which people were willing to go to protect their hybrid home. At the end of the day, we have to accept that the answer to one country... we're going to skip that quote. With tensions between the United States and China growing, some has characterized the fight for Hong Kong's future as a skirmish in a more fundamental clash of civilizations. Beijing considers its intervention in Hong Kong a necessary move for maintaining the country's sovereignty, while Washington considers it a full frontal attack on the country's autonomy. In both worldviews, Hong Kong again is caught in the middle. Either the territory is poised for a return to protest politics, the sort of running street battles that shatter the city's reputation as an orderly center of international finance, or the latest national security diktats from Beijing will only serve to drive away the commerce and capital Hong Kong needs to flourish. Both outcomes are possible. This is a peaceful rehearsal for the collapse of the whole system, said Chang Kwang Yang, a Hong Kong street artist and rapper known as MC Yang. MC Yang with the street artist and raps. The world has gone to watch what happens here. I'm going to pull up MC Yang's music as I continue talking about this. For a place that excelled in fusion before it was fashionable, the possibility that its people cannot reach a compromise strikes at the very notion of what it means to be from Hong Kong. Douglas Young started a home decor and fashion brand called God that plays with Western notions of Orientalism and celebrates tokens of Hong Kong life. Okay, this is MC, is this MC Yang? This most recent thing has 14 views. This is an ad. Alright, let's listen to some MC Yang. Alright, we'll continue. Douglas Young started a home decor and fashion brand called God that plays with the puns that mix Cantonese and English breakfast of macaroni soup. This is MC Yang. Okay. But Mr. Young also rattles off about the democratic touchstones that he says make Hong Kong special: a rule of law, freedom of expression, and an independent judiciary. These are the civil liberties that... I hate it. I hate it. I'm sorry, MC Yang. I love your activism work, and I'm glad that you're standing up for your liberties and against China and whatever, but your music sucks, okay? I'm sorry. I'm worried that Hong Kong people are becoming second-class citizens in our own country again. Is our fate to always feel colonized? And then the New York Times does a good job of going over the history of Hong Kong, and then it goes over the protests that happened last year. I'd recommend that everyone inform themselves about that. You can look up the New York Times. It's on the front page. Not on the front page, but it's on the website. It's on the very front. So, thanks so much for listening. Oh, Legendary Locals. How could I forget? How could I forget? I even mentioned it during the podcast. I would never forget to do such a thing. Alright, Legendary Locals. We did the cop guy last, right? The guy that was the basis of the cartoon. Oh, we got a while to go. We got a while. Oh, May Estelle Cook, I think, is where we're at. Nope, Dan Haley. Dan Haley runs the Wednesday Journal, so, yeah. At the age of 10, native Oak Parker Dan Haley launched a mimeographical newspaper for his block on South Taylor Avenue. After graduating from Roosevelt University and working a few years in various Oak Park bookstores, Dan Haley turned down the job of a lively arts editor at the Pioneer Press. Instead, he and two other founding colleagues, Ann Duggan and Sharon Britton, rounded up 65 locals to invest in a new independent weekly local newspaper, the Wednesday Journal. Dan has been the editor and publisher since its first issue on July 31st, 1980. In his weekly column and editorials, he has long been the master of ceremonies, overseeing the ongoing public conversations of the topics of the day. To charm wit by occasionally calling the spade a spade, his column set a tone for public discussion in Oak Park. Haley is a strong believer in the special place that Oak Park plays in improving racial integration and race relations. Dan is seen above as Virginia Ginny, Casson, and Gary Wood, above courtesy of the Wednesday Journal. Alright, so Dan Haley, he ran the Wednesday Journal. So that's your little history lesson. And I don't think the Lounge with Luke Gilfillan could be what it is, at least the podcast portion of the Lounge with Luke Gilfillan could not be where it is today without the Wednesday Journal. So thank you, Dan Haley, for creating that. Though, I don't think the Wednesday Journal is technically independent anymore because it's run by growing community media. But Yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening, and goodbye.